Since receiving my Nuffield Scholarship, I have been researching microbial management and its importance in the dairy and beef industry. Antimicrobial resistance has been a hot topic in recent years, and rightly so, considering the discovery of penicillin by Alexander Fleming in 1928 is a decade shy of its 100th birthday. Once a miracle drug, it's now obsolete in many cases and is no longer effective at combating common diseases. I have been looking at how we can reduce the bacterial challenge on our livestock, which in turn will decrease our use of antibiotics in agriculture to correct antimicrobial stewardship. During the course of my Global Focus programme, I have travelled over 56,000 kilometres for 48 days through Singapore, Hong Kong, China, the Philippines, Germany, the UK and America. During my personal travels, I also visited Wales, Germany, Holland and France. I've been fortunate during this time to meet extraordinary people that I otherwise never would have had the opportunity to, and learn a lot from them along the way. We visited a range of farms, from minute family farms to large industrial scale units with thousands of animals. All the time, my unwavering focus was on how these farms managed their operations. Regardless of scale, best practice was the key to healthy, productive and profitable enterprises. Like all Irish farms, each farm we visited had potential areas for improvement. There were farms that were excellent at calf rearing, farms that had performed selective dry cow therapy, and others that had excellent herd vaccination protocols. Looking back at each of these, I took a little from each farm which could be applied to the dairy and Irish beef industry. I originally come from a suckler beef background, and we also breed and produce sport horses. In 2012, I received a new entrant quota and commenced dairy farming in 2013. As you can see, I'm also a daughter-proven sire, and my interest in animal health was instilled from a young age by James Herriot. Antimicrobial resistance is a global phenomenon and a well-recognized threat to public and animal health. It needs to be seen as the greatest security threat of our lifetime, and needs to be at the forefront of every healthcare and agricultural government decision. Unaddressed, AMR has a capability of killing more people than cancer by 2050. That's one person every 3 seconds if action is not taken. Agricultural in general is where the finger is pointed. We're already blamed for our carbon footprint, our use of natural resources, our scale, and now our over-reliance on antibiotics. We can deny this and bury our heads in the sand, or we can be proactive. We can achieve this through animal health management by reducing the bacterial burden that is on our animals. There is a proactive approach whereby we take precaution around health on our farms, or a reactive approach when we only act when a severe problem arises. Herd health can be jeopardized by infectious diseases brought onto farm through purchasing of stock, wildlife, farm visits, etc. Biosecurity measures need to be improved on our farms. You wouldn't gain access to a pig or a poultry industry without showering and changing prior to entering the farm premise. This might seem extreme, but livestock production systems are light years behind these security measures. On top of this, vaccination against disease hold the key to safeguarding our stock, leading to healthier calves, improved growth rates, and more fertile and productive herds. Animal health is a key pillar of productivity, and we all know productivity goes hand in hand with profitability. One of the prime examples of prevention being better than cure was on Klaus Dairy Farms in Hillmar, California. They had 2,400 dairy cows with a 1.42% mortality rate in their calves under 60 days of age. This was due to strict colostrum management and a herd vaccination program in place. On the Harris Ranch, where 120,000 beef cattle were on hand at any one time, a breakdown in herd health would have been an epidemic. With that in mind, vaccines were a key element in maintaining a profitable, streamlined business with a 1% mortality rate being recorded. By identifying our individual farm strengths and weakness, we can benchmark ourselves against previous years and our fellow farmers, using records readily available through ICBF, milk recording, and Cowa performance reports, factory dockets and mortality rates. All of these areas may be somewhat compromised through genetics, but mostly there are subclinical health issues. By putting a vaccination placement plan in conjunction with our vets, we can reduce our unnecessary antibiotic use in the long term by keeping our animals healthy while saving time and money when we least can afford. The most important time of an animal's life is the first 8 weeks. This has a significant bearing on the production by this animal in later life. As a calf is born with no immunity, its start in life is most critical. It's when they're most vulnerable and are a sponge to absorb all the surrounding bacteria, good and bad. The colostrum 1-2-3 approach should be practiced by every dairy farmer. First milk within 2 hours with at least 3 litres of colostrum. 70% of calves tested in regional laboratories show inadequate colostrum uptake. The performance of dairy heifer calves from birth to weaning from 8 to 12 weeks is the single biggest determinant of lifetime milk production. According to Cornell University's Mike van Amberg, research worldwide and numerous on-farm assessments have shown that 70% of milk yields is due to management, with the remainder due to genetics. We need to update our vaccination programs and commit to giving every calf colostrum within the first hours of life. It's the most critical time to give an animal a head start. Biosecurity and cleanliness, with a zero tolerance to outside visitors, is also the utmost importance at this time. As I stated, I was a suckler farmer not so long ago, and colostrum management is not possible at the best of times. But with new pilot schemes currently in place through AHI to eradicate Johne's disease, there may be opportunities for neighbouring suckler farmers to source excess colostrum safely from Johne's-free herds in the near future. During my time in Europe, I noticed that blanket dry cow treatment is already illegal in many countries, one being our main competitors, the Netherlands, leaving our Dutch friends at a competitive edge. This was now common practice without any adverse effects. One of the main reasons we're lagging behind is because less than 35% of Irish dairy farmers partake in milk carding, leaving us comparable to the Dutch in the 1950s. Blanket dry cow treatment was introduced at a time when cell counts were in excess of 500,000. We have surpassed this period with an average cell count in Ireland in the region of 175,000, which would suggest that we no longer need to use this treatment as a crutch. For everyone that tells me they have practiced selective dry cow successfully, there's another to tell me that it doesn't work. The reason it didn't work is because the wrong protocols were followed. An infection was introduced at dry off, as this slide shows, or there was already infection present and it was sealed in. Selective dry cow needs to be done in a clinical fashion if it is to be successful and should not be approached half-heartedly. The Cell Check programme has just announced a new free consultation service. This is being made available to farmers just in time for this season's dry period. This is a consultation specifically around drying off strategies and mastitis and cell count control between trained veterinary practitioners and individual farmers. This is now available as part of the Targeted Advisory on Animal Health Service. It's free of charge to farmers and is funded through the Rural Development Plan. The purpose of this programme is to enable farmers to engage with their vet to develop farm-specific selective dry cow strategies. And I'm not just preaching from the pulpit, it does work. This is a somatic cell count for our herd over the last 3 years. 2016 is on the back of blanket dry cow treatment. 2017 is after 20% of the herd was sealer only. And 2018 is after 70% of the herd under 150,000 cell received sealer only. As you can see, 2018's cell count is better than any of the previous years. One of the areas that surprised me the most in my travels, and is an overlooked source of infection on all our farms, our water. It can be a host of bacterial, viral, and parasitic organisms, putting stress on our stock's immune systems. A former UK scholar that I met in Wales called Aled Davies, who I met during my travels, has successfully reduced the bacterial burden on livestock through his company Pruex. Water troughs grow biofilm that harbour bad bacteria such as E. coli, streps, and pseudomonas, that is constantly putting stress on our stock's immune system. By the introduction of good bacteria to the water, it suppresses the bad bacteria, allowing our animals to achieve their optimum capability, whether it's through milk production, growth rates, or carcass potential. It's a simple and basic concept whereby bacteria must multiply every 4 to 5 days to survive. By overpopulating the area with good bacteria, it keeps the bad bacteria dormant and it dies off. Removing this bacterial burden on our livestock immune system allows them to focus on the most important areas of infection. As you can see from the pictures, These water troughs on our farm are before and after treatment. Neither of these troughs were emptied, just water plus was added, and within 72 hours, this was the result. On a recent farm survey I undertook, I was surprised at the lack of importance that us as farmers put on water quality. Only 50% of farmers cleaned out water troughs regularly. We need to pay more attention to what's in our water. This is what I found in our cow's water trough in a paddock when I went in to allow them in one of the weeks. Would you like to drink it? Brings me to my recommendations. I would like to see government backing. It's paramount that the government stands up and removes the 23% VAT rate that currently is placed on vaccines. The use of vaccinations are an effective measure to improve herd health and will, in turn, reduce the need for antibiotic usage. We need improved participation in milk recording. If you don't measure, you can't improve your performance. Although having low somatic cell count will benefit the farmer financially, it will also benefit the processor. Incentives need to be put in place to improve the current uptake in milk recording. Not only will it assist farmers identifying high somatic cell count cows and low producers, it would also improve herd health and production. Processors will in turn benefit as the composition of the milk will be easier to process and will give a greater financial return. Co-op involvement by subsidization of milk recording costs would be one alternative. Otherwise, a bonus scheme should be put in place for milk with low somatic cell count, which would incentivize farmers with a monetary reward for having a low cell count. We need to use the information that we receive from these studies to identify our high cell count cows and have their milk samples cultured for antibiotic sensitivity. It will identify the correct antibiotic to use at the end of lactation and also will give a list of non-effective drugs. Selective Dry Cow. If you have gone to the trouble of milk recording, use the data that's available to you to make use of the funded advisory service to find out if selective dry cow therapy is for you or not. And we need to rebrand the term dry cow tubes, as they have no correlation on the suppressing of milk production at the end of lactation. The purpose of the antibiotic tube is to treat any infections that may be present in the cow's udder. If there is no infection there, antibiotic treatment is unnecessary. And finally, we need clean water for healthy livestock. The water they drink should be clean enough for you. This one step can piece together everything by removing the burden that is on our livestock, allowing their new immune systems to focus on what matters most. At this point, I would like to thank Nuffield and my sponsors without none of this would have been possible. My travels have allowed me to broaden my perspectives, enhance my knowledge, and give me opportunities that I otherwise never would have had. My mentor, David Kerr, and John Turrell, if you don't pack it in this year with all that we put you through, you never will. I would like to acknowledge my wife, Lois, and our children. It's been a big deal leaving family behind, but it's a bigger deal being left behind. Not only did Lois keep the show on the road while I was away, she's also been a major help in my report. My father, Eamon Sr., who is pensionable but indispensable in every way, took everything in his stride while I travelled the globe. He has also always taken every opportunity in life, and he was very supportive of me in taking my Nuffield scholarship. All of this would not have been done without the assistance of Pat Moylan, our Teagasc advisor. Every decision was made with Pat and my father without having to cast a thought. The sense of having your affairs in order as I travelled was a great burden off my shoulders. I'd like to thank my mother and my brothers and sister who always helped out on the farm and assisted minding my two girls and looking out for Lois while I travelled. Thank you very much.